Yeah. Dawn is fine.
We look forward to today's session.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It was kind of all week. I had in my mind, what am I going to talk about? How am I going to talk about it? Uh,
Yes.
okay. First of all, thank you for everybody for having returned for the second session. I know the first introduction to CA can be a little dense, um, can be a little surprising, perhaps to some people. A lot of information coming in all at once. So today we're going to be finishing up what we talked about last time with the sequence sequence organization, and then moving on to a new topic, preference organization, which I'm sure you haven't heard about. So that'll be a whole new area. Okay. Let's see. Looks like we've got around 60 people at the moment. I'm sure people will sort of come back in. So
Yes.
I'll go into the PowerPoint now and we'll do a little bit of review while the last few people kind of come in. Okay, let's see if I can remember how to do this from last week. Okay. Okay. Can you now see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. Let me simply jump in. Okay. Do you see the title slide now?
Yes.
And going to the next one?
Yes.
Okay. Then we're good to go. Okay. I'm just going to quickly run through some of these slides to where we were last time. Okay. So first of all, we commented that what I'm talking about today is very strictly what is called ethnomethodological CA, or for short, SSJCA, for Sachs, Shagloff, and Jefferson. There are many other types of analysis of conversational data. Think of them as different flavors of CA. Some of them are more or less compatible. Some of them, however, are coming from contrasting research traditions. And we said the primary outlook on of CA is that language is social interaction. Now, on this slide it says language as, but I think we can just say equals. Language equals social interaction. Social interaction equals language. Every day we interact with people in various ways. But to be honest, the most common way that we interact with other people is through talk. We do it all day long. We also talked about this idea that traditional language teaching, textbooks, and so on represent only this small red dot in the middle. And then outside of this is language use, performance, parole. That is, many language teachers see their job as teaching the system, but not teaching use. They separate those things, language teaching, the language, and language use. CA would put them together. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much about each of these, so we get get going. But then the CA view is a much more dynamic, interactive world where we have all the physical resources, we have the linguistic resources, we have everything together, interacting together. Okay. So in terms of the basics, that's what we started covering last time. The first of the basics was the turn-taking system, how people take turns in interaction. And we came up with basically this set of rules. Again, rules is the wrong word because that sounds like something that's imposed from the outside. Rather, these are practices. It is what people actually doing conversation actually do in empirically observable ways. So first of all, rule 1A, current speaker may, but need not, select next speaker. That is, I, as a speaker, may give the turn to somebody else. So for example, by asking a question to someone. If the current speaker does not do that, then we have rule 1B. If current speaker does not select next speaker, a next speaker may, but need not, self-select by speaking first. That's the one we played with our game last time where we just said the next number is 1, the next number is 2, the next number is 3, the next number was 4. I like hamburgers, I like pizza, that's the rule 1B, and it is very useful to practice that with students. Then if neither of those two happens, then we have rule 1C. If no other participant self-selects, current speaker may, but need not, speak again. Now we can think of this as a specialized version of rule 1B. Rule 1B is any next speaker. Rule 1C is simply that now includes also the current speaker. Okay.
Excuse me, Don. I
Yeah.
think Eileen has a question.
Okay.
She raised her hand. Go
Since
ahead, Eileen.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead and ask, since I can't see the participants in my current view.
Yes, sorry. Hi,
Oh.
Eileen. Would you like to ask your question? I see that you raised your hand. All right. Perhaps later?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
How many people have we got in here now?
Right now we have 74.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and play this counting game.
All
So
right.
everyone turn on your mics. Okay, we'll play it just like we did last time, where we're going to say the next number is 1, the next number is 2.
Let's try out rule number 1.
Okay, so somebody begin with the next number is 1.
The next number is 1.
Next number 2.
Next number 3.
Next number 4.
Next number 5.
Okay, that's good, but we're getting some gaps in between. So let's see if we can jump in a little more quickly. The next number is, and then the number. Okay, so the next number is, let's start with 1 again. The next number is 1.
Next
The
number
Next number is
1.
The next number is 2.
The next number is 3.
the next
Next
number
number
is 4.
4.
The
Next
next
number
number is 5.
The next number is 6.
The next number is 7.
The
Okay.
next number is 8.
That's great. That's great. So really, we were getting some simultaneous talking, some overlap is what the CA people call that. And overlap shows that we're participating actively. So if there's no overlap, it means people are actually waiting for somebody to finish. Okay, that's good. Go ahead and turn off your mics. Let's go ahead and move forward. Okay, so we had that first thing, we were talking about the turn-taking rules. The next big area was sequence organization. That is, certain types of turns come after other types of turns. The simplest example of that is that when I issue a greeting is the expectable next action. So hi, hi. That's what we expect to happen next. Okay, so we had the idea of adjacency pairs, these pairs of turns that go together. This is a normative expectation. So these aren't rules. It's not a hard and fast conversational rule. It's simply when I do one of one pair, I expect the next one to be of that pair. Okay, and then we looked at some common ones: greetings, questions, answers. Very important here, question here. Question might be better referred to as a request for information. Very important. A question is a request for information. So we're not talking about grammatical questions. So for example, would you like to go see a movie is not a question, not from the CA perspective. It's an invitation. So a question here refers to a request for information. Okay, summons reply, that's kind of excuse me, yes. Telephone ringing, and then the response to that, hello. Offer invitations, these now have two second pair parts. We have acceptance and declination. I actually prefer accept and reject. When I'm working with students, I also use the simplest form of this. I just say invite, accept, reject. Invite, accept, reject. Kind of get rid of those noun forms there. Request, grant, refusal. So request, grant, refuse. Assessment, which is an opinion. After an opinion, you can agree or disagree. Then we had accusation and denial and apology. You left the lights on. It wasn't me. There's the denial. You left the, it's 6:30. Sorry, the apology. After an apology, we might have a minimalization. Please excuse Dan. It's nothing. Okay, and then we said, in addition to these simple pairs of a first pair part and a second pair part, we also have more complex sequences that have been analyzed. So this one of a complaint sequence where you have a first position, second position, third position, fourth position, and what most likely happens in each of those positions. Complements start to become complex. Complements as social actions are themselves difficult to deal with. It is, for example, socially problematic to simply accept, you're a great cook. Yes, I am. That doesn't really work. So we have all kinds of techniques that we have for dealing with these type of things. Minimalization, denial, acceptance, return complement. The next big area that we talked about is that we have a first pair part and a second pair part, but in addition to that first and second, we can expand that pair. We can expand it in 3 locations: before the first pair part, between the first and second pair part, and after the second pair part. Last time, we got to pre-expansions, and that's sort of what we'll look at today as a review. So the key things when we talk about these pre-sequences, it doesn't mean pre as in before, but pre as in preliminary to. So for example, I may want to do an invitation. I will do some preliminary checking for whether you are likely to accept my invitation. If I'm getting negative kind of feedback there, then I may not do the invitation at all. That's why we think of it as preliminary to. Okay. Following a pre-invitation, we tend to use, that's the wrong way to say that. There are two actions that can take place after a pre-invitation. One would be the go-ahead. That is, I hear a possible invitation in the making. I want you to go ahead with that invitation. Very common pre-invitations are are you busy? Are you free? Are you doing anything? Do you like? These are the most common forms that these pre-invitations take, particularly the do you like? I like to stress this one. Every EFL textbook in the entire planet begins Unit 1, Chapter 1 with likes and dislikes. Do you like cats? Do you like dogs? Do you like hamburger? Do you like pizza? Do you like sports? Do you like video games? That is nonsense. I wish book publishers would stop doing that. That is not how we use do you like. In fact, it's very strange and bizarre to, out of the blue, ask somebody, do you like cats? Rather, we use them primarily, perhaps almost all the time, as a pre-invitation. Do you like Irish music? Is a possible invitation about Irish music. Do you like pizza? Is a possible invitation to have pizza. Okay. Notice how these are fitted grammatically. Are you busy? No, not really. So are you busy? That's formatted a yes/no question. So we need the no, not really, not at all. No, I'm just any of those. The second one, what are you doing? That's formatted as an information question. So we need the content word, nothing. So what are you doing? Nothing much. That's the nice pair. Are you busy? No, not really. Are you busy? No, not really. What are you doing? Nothing much. And you can go back and forth with your students to make sure they're matching those correctly. Okay, the alternative to a go ahead is I hear a possible invitation and I want to block it. I want to stop that possible invitation from happening. Are you busy on Friday? I've got some stuff I sort of have to do. Do you like Irish music? Yeah, not so much. Okay, these really are blocks, and it is very unlikely that A would continue with an invitation following this sort of strong block. Sometimes we'll also get a softer sort of block, a hedge. Are you busy on Friday? I'm just doing some odds and ends. Why? So the first half of that, I'm just doing some odds and ends, is open to the invitation. Why kind of suggests that it depends on what you're going to invite me to do. So this is a kind of 50-50. Okay. Then we had pre-offers. So remember, somehow an invitation is different than an offer. Inviting you, do you want to go to a movie versus would you like some coffee? They're not exactly the same thing. Although speech act theorists often try to place them as the same objects. Okay, so prior to an invitation, we can have a pre-offer. The pre-offer tries to get somebody to volunteer. Okay, let's look at that example again. I'm going to buy a thermometer, though, because I think we have a thermometer. That's the pre-offer. You do. That's the go-ahead. Want to use it? There's the offer. Yeah, there's the acceptance of that offer. So notice that we have 4 turns there. We have a pre-offer, a go-ahead, offer, accept. So actually 2 sequences, the main adjacency pair, and then a pre-sequence pair before that. Okay, the next big category is pre-requests. Requests are somewhat problematic sorts of actions. Sometimes these pre-requests can sound very similar to pre-invitations, but often the context makes it clear. Are you free? Like, are you free Friday evening? Sounds very much like a pre-invitation. Are you free after class on Thursday? Sounds much more like a pre-request. Do you have, very common pre-request, do you have a hammer? Do you have a camera? So requesting if you have something is obviously a proper way to check whether you might be able to borrow something. Do you know how to? Another very common pre-request format. Do you know how to update system software? Do you know how to repair a broken fan? Okay, so do you have a hammer? There's the pre-request. Sure. Can I borrow it? No problem. Do you have a hammer? Yeah, but I'm not sure where it is at the moment. There's the block to that pre-request. Then we moved into pre-announcements or pre-tellings, where we have these kind of patterns. Guess what? What? Guess what says I have news to tell. Responding with what? Notice the following intonation. Guess what? What? That what says B is willing to receive the news. Guess how much I paid for this? How much? Did you hear what happened at work yesterday? No, what? Hey, I got something that's wild. What? That last one is more typically a pre-telling in the sense that it won't be a simple piece of news, but probably a whole telling, a whole story. And the word while gives the person an indication of what kind of story it's going to be. So, hey, I got something that's crazy. Hey, I got something that's really funny. Hey, I got something that's awful. The word you're using is pre-indicating what kind of story will be occurring next. Okay, and like with the others, you can have a blocking. Did you hear what happened last night? Yeah, shocking, isn't it? All right, stop. Do not tell the news. I already know the news. Okay, and I think, let's see, we went through that one. Oh, and we talked about pre-pre's. So we have these pre-actions like, can I ask you a question? Could you do me a favor? And we said that what these regularly occasion is a long telling. Could you do me a favor? Sure. Well, you know, I've been having problems with my car, like the engine not starting. Well, it happened again this morning, and I've got this really important meeting to get to this afternoon, but the garage guy says the car isn't going to be ready until maybe the day after tomorrow. And like blah, 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 blah. Hopefully then B will then volunteer to give him a ride, to loan him a car, something. So this is a way of avoiding doing the request. Okay, and then we got to this. We had several people practicing this. Okay. Okay. Right. And that's where we got to. So let me stop sharing for a moment here. This will be our next new area. Insert expansion, that is inserting material between the first and second pair part. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, right. have we got some questions right at this point?
If you have questions, please go ahead and turn
You can
on your
either
microphone.
type it in the
Mhm.
chat or unmute your mic and just speak it.
Anyone from the audience? Okay.
Okay.
Ching, go ahead, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dr. Carol.
Good
Yeah,
morning.
this is my first time to join this class. Last week, I missed
Okay.
the opportunity. And I'm wondering, how can I apply this content into my teaching?
Yeah, well, that is the big question. I think the first thing is to realize that this is how conversation is organized. So when we train teachers, for example, we give them classes on pedagogic grammar. We give them classes on phonology. We give them classes on what we think of as the language. But what we're presenting them with is a very, very teeny part of what language actually is. So I think of this in two ways. One, I think of it in terms of teacher awareness. Teachers should be aware that this is how conversation, spoken interaction is actually organized. And then once you have that awareness, it will change what you will do in your classroom. So it's not a matter of you have to teach these specific things. I think you can at more advanced levels, but even at a beginning level, the teacher should be aware that, for example, this is how people take turns. How can you structure an activity so that you get naturally occurring turn taking? Typically, a classroom does not have naturally occurring turn taking, so it's something that you have to work to provide. Okay, the second part of that is how can you apply it to your teaching is perhaps when you get to that level of wanting to maybe record your classroom interaction and you want to see what's happening in your own classroom or someone else's classroom. I think at that point, CA can be a valuable research tool. Okay, I suppose that's all I can say. That it's a big question, and all I was able to give was a small answer. Someone else?
Yes, thank you very much.
Sure.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? All right, I guess not.
Okay, let's go back into the PowerPoint then.
Okay.
Okay. I'll be there in a moment.
We have a comment in the chat saying,
Oh, okay. Let's see. Natural turn taking is key. I agree with the professor that we can understand it and then try to facilitate it in our classes. Absolutely. We need to design activities that promote naturally occurring turn taking, that allow it to happen. We don't necessarily have to teach it, but realize that the norms of institutional teaching have suppressed natural turn taking. When your students are outside the classes, when the kids are talking with each other in casual moments in class, they are naturally turn taking. But once formal class begins, that turn taking goes out the window and you get a whole different system of turn taking. Okay, anyway, that's a very good comment.
That
Okay.
is so true. In terms of textbook, like because of the space, so the conversations are so unnatural, but we keep on teaching those those conversations to kids.
So keep in mind that again, classrooms are complex environments. There's not one type of interaction that happens inside a classroom. It's a mixture, and it comes back and forth. You have the formal instruction parts with the teachers in the front. You have group work, and the group work is more likely to be sort of naturally sort of turn taking. And again, you need to allow for that different types of interaction within the classroom. Okay, I see Winnie.
Yeah, thank you, teacher.
Sure.
I want to ask you, because the first member of the question, I also had it last week. So maybe please, teacher, you can give us, some activity, how to do that, because I still don't know how to organize your teaching into my, my classroom. So can you give, for example, how to do that? Teach us, an activity we can use in our classroom. Thank you.
So in terms of, let's say, teaching turn taking, I have actually several small articles that deal with activities that can get people to be more freely taking turns. A lot of this involves kind of going around in circles, or kind of having a ball, for example, that they have to grab the ball. But in particular, I think the part that needs to be worked on is that Rule 1B, that is self-selection. That's the part of the turn taking that has been suppressed by the classroom. Now, the great thing is children are very good at self-selecting. So if anything, the teacher's problem tends to be trying how to manage the exuberance of those children all wanting to talk at the same time. But that's a good thing. Say that's a great advantage of teaching elementary school kids, is they still have that naturalness that hasn't been smashed out of them yet. So, and that's it. We want to make sure we're not another Pink Floyd. Any Pink Floyd fans here? So teacher, leave them kids alone. You're just another brick in the wall. So we want to make sure we're not just another brick in the institutional wall, crushing their natural turn taking.
And I can also comment on that. Last night we were hosting D&D, Dungeons and Dragons role play game night.
Okay.
And so there were like 8 participants online, and we all had to create our own role, like the character, and then we started playing. But so they, the game master gave us the scenario, the backstory, the story, and then we had to interact with each other. So that's that we get to the part where like a big roosters were caught in a trap. One of our character is caught in a trap, and we had to help her. And then and so we talk about self-selection. Nobody wanted to say anything.
Were you in a face-to-face like chat like this?
Oh no,
or was it a text chat?
No, it's not a text chat. It's a Google Meet, and we're in this room setting where our cameras are all on, and we were looking at each other. And I was waiting for our Taiwanese participants, undergraduate students, to self-select, because someone is caught in a trap. We need to help her, and then nobody wanted to say anything, so I have to self-select, and then so yeah.
Well, of course, that technology gets in the way there. Like you say, you're all looking at each other, but you can't tell who I'm looking at right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
so I had to point to someone.
All you can do is maybe make certain guesses about it, but in that sense, many of the resources we have in face-to-face interaction, we don't actually have on these online forums. Yeah, so there are certain technological limitations there.
I can see. So if we were in a same room, then I would give a certain person eye contact, or maybe like stare at that person, and then take over the talk.
I'm looking at a comment in the chat here. I'm thinking, let's see, instead of just getting a prescriptive SOP to teach, this is why English teaching in Taiwan is ineffective. We don't know what true conversation is. So I think that's a good point to start with, to say, if you have a better picture, and I don't say not just conversation, but what is language? If the language teacher changes their image of what language is, the teaching will also change. Most language teachers all around the world believe that their job is to teach the system. Their job is to teach grammar. Their job is to teach vocabulary, to some extent, sort of practical usage things, but that is that very small picture. And CA helps you break out of that small picture. Okay, let's go ahead now, go back to the presentations. We're going to be taking our first break in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to go back to the presentation now. Okay, so now we're talking about something that can be inserted between the first and second pair part. Now, when we look at this, it all looks like very complex stuff. But when you think about it for a minute, this is what we all do every single day. Everything that CA is talking about is stuff that CA analysts have simply found in naturally occurring talk. These are not rules that conversation analysts have made up. We're simply saying, look, this is what we do. Okay, so quite often the talk that occurs in the next turn after a first pair part is hearably not a second pair part. For example, a request might be followed with a question asking for more details. This is referred to as a pre-second. How long does it take to get there? Are you going by car? Yeah, about 40 minutes. So before they can give a time, before they can give an answer, they need more information. Right? So how long does it take to get there? Are you going by car? Yeah, about 40 minutes. However, insert expansion can be heard as implicative of an upcoming dispreferred action. This follows the general principle that anything that occurs in the location where preferred action should have occurred, i.e. immediately, displays possible disaffiliation. This is sometimes called a post-first. So, do you want to have Thai food for dinner? What? Would you rather have something else? So that what isn't just a question, just isn't just asking for repetition, but it already suggests that B is not happy, not willing to accept the initial suggestion by A. Okay. I think I'm going to skip over this just in terms of time. It can often take a lot of time to look at the details of these interactions. So let's take an example of post-expansion then. So remember, we have pre-expansion, insert expansion, and now post-expansion. Post-expansion, so in adjacency pairs, which refer to a preferred second pair part, such as accepting, granting, agreeing, the sequence typically ends and the talk moves on, or the post-expansion is minimal. Could I borrow your camera? Sure, no problem. Thanks. And that's it. That sequence is over. That thanks here is then called a sequence closing third. However, in the case of a dispreferred response, the sequence may be reopened in the pursuit of a preferred response. Could I borrow your car? Could I borrow your camera? I don't know. I sort of hate to lend it out to anyone. I'll take good care of it and get it back to you tomorrow night. And then that sequence would continue. Okay, so here are some of the reasons why sequence organization matters to teachers. So first, this quote by Shegloff: "A great deal of talk and interaction, perhaps most of it, is better examined with respect to action than with respect to topicality, more for what it is doing than for what it is about." So talk and interaction is organized according to action, not topic. And yet our textbooks are always organized around topics. The primary context for understanding what is being said and done in the current turn at talk is what was said and done in prior turns, often the just prior turn. Recognizing the type of sequence that is underway is of crucial importance to producing a relevant next turn at talk. Sequence organization lies at the core of a grammar for interaction. So that may be a new context, not grammar, grammar for interaction. Sequence organization has been almost wholly ignored in ESL, EFL teaching materials. Even advanced students often do not know what comes next. Think of that, a very basic question: what comes next? You ask your students, do you want to go to the store? They will often be completely blank about that. Do you like pizza? Completely blank as to what comes next. And the textbooks simply do not deal with it. The structure of sequences is intertwined with preference organization. That's our next topic, which is a primary resource for managing human sociality. Okay, now this is an activity that we could actually do. Let's maybe try this. So here's a basic sequence: invite, accept, or reject. That's the basic adjacency pair. Okay, I think this would be a good place to stop here. I'm going to stop sharing. Stop sharing. Come back and let's say first maybe Jane and I will do one. So Jane, turn your mic on. So we're going to do a basic invite, accept pair. Well, actually, we don't know. We don't know what it's going to turn out, accept or reject. But you're going to try. You want to invite me. You're going to try to get me to accept by expanding that sequence. You're going to have a pre-sequence, maybe even a couple of them, to check that I'm positively oriented towards a possible invitation. Okay, so let's see how that works. So instead of 2 turns, we might be able to expand that out to 10 turns. Okay,
that's a tough task.
Yeah, it's tough, but I think once we see it, it's not all that hard. So let's start off with a do you like? Oh, actually, first, in your head, get in your mind the invitation that you would like to do in the future.
Okay.
Okay, so once you've got an idea in your mind, now maybe start off with a do you like?
Don, do you like to watch movies?
Yeah, I watch quite a few movies. That's a good first pre-sequence. You probably need another pre-sequence now.
What about the Doctor Strange series.
Yeah, the Marvel ones aren't so interesting to me. Now we've got like one positive and one sort of negative there. Can you think of a way of kind of moving around that? You have a potential block there. Can you move around it somehow?
Around it. You know, there's this Doctor Strange 2 sequel that talks about metaverse. I'm not sure if you're.
Oh, that's the new one, right?
Yeah,
I do like the idea of a metaverse. Yeah, that sounds kind of cool to me. Metaverse. So yeah.
Wonderful. So would you like to go see a Doctor Strange 2 together?
When is that playing? That's our insert in. When is that playing?
It's playing now, and we could, if you have time, we could go tomorrow.
Now, okay. What time?
Is 1 o'clock good?
Yeah, 1 o'clock. That'll work for me.
Wonderful. I'll get it. 2 tickets for us.
Okay, great. Okay, so we've turned that 2 sequence. Do you want to see a movie? Sure, sounds great. Into a more naturally occurring sequence. This is something, by the way, you can do with textbook dialogues. You can take them and you can expand them, make them more realistic. Okay, let's see where we are here. I'm going to go back to sharing just to show you what we will talk about next. And I think then we'll go ahead and take our 10-minute break. Hold on a second.
I can see middle school dialogues can be more natural because there's more space and vocabulary. I
mean, the textbook dialogues are just awful.
Yeah, they're just awful, especially.
We will talk about that at a later point, but. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is what we had just done. Very quickly here, I've produced a little booklet. This is available on the web. I used to use this, actually. I made it myself, and I just photocopy it and use it with students. Your turn at Talk. It is available for free on the web. I'll provide a link to that, perhaps in one of the later sessions. And this is basically the syllabus for that class that we do. So much of this is going to be unfamiliar to teachers that are new to teaching. How do we do a phone opening? What are the parts of a phone opening? How do we close a conversation? Pre-closing, closings. How do we do invitations, offers? What are the ways of doing pre-invitations, go ahead, blocking, request sequences, assessments, sequences, and news telling. So this entirely fills up a 1 semester course. Okay, right. This will be our next major topic, preference organization. And this is when we'll take our break, and we'll come back in 10 minutes. So that'll be 11 o'clock for me and 10 o'clock for you people in Taiwan. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'll see you in 10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, see you soon.
してなかった。うん。話してね。うん。
And we're back.
Welcome back.
Okay, right. Well, we'll continue on with the topic of preference organization. Preference organization is also one of those things that is completely ignored in language teaching materials. It's simply not present at all. It's one of the things that makes textbook dialogue so unrealistic, but also just in terms of knowing how interaction works, we need to understand what a central role that preference organization plays so that we can allow it to happen in our classrooms, in our teaching. So, in short, what is it? So, let's go into the PowerPoint.
Excuse me, Professor Carol.
Yes, hi, Shuta. How are you?
Hi, I'm Professor Gandhi.
Shuta is one of my past students from Shikoku Gakuen University.
And what page should I open it? What slide should I open it?
Okay,
What page?
Hold on a second. Back. Okay. Let's see, what page is that? I sent Shuta the PowerPoint the other day. So let's see, quick look. Hold on a second. Okay, Shuta would be looking at slide 61.
Thank you very much.
Okay, sure. No problem. Okay, let's come back into it. So share whole screen. Entire screen. Allow. And now let's go there. Okay. Comic strips, by the way, are a great source for very naturally occurring, naturally seeming conversation. So this is one from the Doonesbury comic strip some time ago, where the guy on the right, guy on the left, sorry, is talking about buying into the new internet stock economy. It's kind of like getting in, getting shares in Google and so on. So he says, I can't believe my good fortune, Jeff. I'm now officially part of the new economy. I mean, I could be into some serious money. And then his friend says, and I'll get a little taste too, right? Because we're roomies and best buds forever, right? Next frame. Silence. And then his friend says, you've changed, man. That is from the silence, and his friend knows he's not getting any of the money. That's a perfect example of the use of preference organization, in this case with a request. Okay, so what are we talking about? First of all, textbook publishers like to visit my office, and they ask me, do you teach grammar? Or sometimes other teachers ask this, do you teach grammar? And I suppose all of you who are language teachers have asked yourself this question as well. Do you teach grammar? Are you a grammar teacher? Now, if you're teaching elementary school kids, the answer to that is probably no. If you're teaching junior high or high school, almost certainly the answer is yes. But probably even with elementary school classrooms, there are probably elements that your lesson is actually centered around a grammar point. For example, the past tense. So again, they like to ask me, do you teach grammar? And I say, yes, but my grammar is not your grammar. My grammar is a grammar for interaction. This is Sachs's definition of grammar. Grammar, of course, is the model of closely ordered, routinely observable social activities. So how are social activities organized? That's a grammar. How you stand in an elevator, that's a grammar. How you walk through a crowded train station, there's a grammar for that. So grammar is structure in society. So yes, if that's what you mean by grammar, yes, I teach grammar. Okay, so we'll kind of start walking through this. Preference organization. There's a form of social organization, a grammar of sorts, which shapes many aspects of talk and interaction. Conversation analysts call it preference organization. It intersects with the concept of face, but goes further by specifying the practices involved. Gene Lerner has a great paper, so it's Finding Face in the Preference Structures of Talk and Interaction, that looks at how preference organization from a CA perspective ties in with the concept of face that we commonly see in other approaches. The organization of preference affects how we tailor our talk for particular recipients, recipient design. It affects how we describe persons, places, and events, how we construct invitations, as well as how we respond to them, how requests are designed, how we shape the responses, how we agree and disagree, how we ask questions, and how we answer them, and much more. In short, it cuts across many of the bread and butter areas of language instruction. Yet it is either entirely absent from language teaching materials or only accidentally found, usually in distorted form. So virtually all the grammar we teach in classes is ultimately related to preference organization. So CA preference is not personal preference. That's often confusing and perhaps a bad choice of word on CA's part. Preference doesn't mean I like I prefer oranges to apples. That's not what this is about. Preference is a systematic orientation towards something. So in linguistics, people often use marked and unmarked. That's really a better sense. So we're talking about the preferred is the unmarked version, and the dispreferred is the marked version. So let me go ahead and read this. The concept of preference in CA is not about preferring this or that in the everyday sense. It is not about likes and dislikes, as in, I prefer dogs to cats. It is not a personal or psychological preference. It is a shared social preference grounded in observable practices. Preference refers to a systematic, that is, structural, and asymmetrical relationship between alternative descriptions or actions. It is deeply rooted in the norms and reflected in the practices of social interaction. The CA terms preferred and dispreferred are somewhat similar to unmarked and marked in linguistics. So preferred, unmarked, dispreferred, marked. Broadly stated, preferred actions reflect a no problem orientation, while dispreferred actions suggest a problematic stance. In question formation, terms can be formatted such that they build in a bias towards a certain type of response. That's for next time. Okay. Some of this I think I'm going to be skipping. We might, yeah. Some of this I think I'm just going to skip over. It's a little too detailed for us right at the moment. let's talk about preference in adjacency pair organization, because that's perhaps where we see it most. So in a case of a first pair part greeting, first pair part summons, first pair part question, there's only one relevant second pair part. So it's greeting, greeting, summons reply, question answer. There is no second alternative. However, for first pair parts such as invitations, offers, requests, assessments, compliments, etc., have two or more relevant second pair parts. For example, an invitation makes relevant either an acceptance or a rejection. Yet these alternative actions are not symmetrical. They are not treated equally by participants. One of these relevant actions is oriented to as systematic preferred, that is, as the preferred next action. The other is a dispreferred next action, and this orientation is displayed marked via a set of interactional practices. In the case of an invitation, acceptance is the preferred next action, and rejection is the dispreferred next action. Once again, we're not talking about personal preference. You may strongly wish to reject the invitation, but you will still structure your rejection along the lines laid out by preference organization. Okay, this leads us to another sort of unusual concept, a turn shape. A turn at talk can have a shape. It is packaged in a certain way. Preferred next actions are regularly packaged, that is, formatted in characteristic ways. Most characteristically, let's look at these red things. Next speaker begins speaking with little or no gap. And that's important. Little or no gap. So, do you want to go to the movie? Sure. Do you want to go to the movie? Sure. Do you want to go to the movie? Sure, sounds great. There's no gap there. A little might be a tenth of a second, but really, we're looking for no gap transition. And then two, the preferred next action is done as early as possible in the turn. So, do you want to go to the movie? Sure. The very first word in the turn does the action of accepting. So it is not, for example, do you want to go to the movies? That sounds great. Sure. That it would be the last word. So do you want to go to a movie? Sure. Sounds fun. Acceptance coupled with a positive assessment. In this example, there is no gap whatsoever between the end of movie and the onset of sure. There is also, note that there's also no hesitation in the production of sure. That's important. It has to be sure. It can't be sure, sure, which is what students tend to do. The single word placed precisely where it does the work of accepting the invitation. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and I'm going to use Jane again as our example. Okay, Jane, we're going to try to do this as carefully coordinated as we can. It's like, do you want to, let's say, do you want to get something to eat? That's
Sure.
what I'm saying. Do you want to get something to eat? Sure.
Sure.
Do you want to get something to eat? Sure. Ready? Okay. Do you want to get something to eat?
Sure.
A little gap there. So, do you want to get something to eat?
Sure.
Okay, one more time. One more time. This is actually hard with the technology because there's a gap with the technology. But
Yeah.
let's try it again. Okay?
Mhm.
So, everybody, do you want to get something to eat?
Sure.
Sure. Okay, that was perfect. Right on. Okay, again. Do you want to get something to eat?
Sure.
Do you want to get something to eat?
Sure.
Okay, now, in addition to sure, add sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay.
Do you want to get something to eat?
Sure. Sounds good.
Okay, great. That's what we're looking for. And that's something you can absolutely practice with students. You can do it with them, you with them. And then you can also have them do it around in a circle. Get the students in a circle. Do you want to get, I start with something that's very rhythmic. For example, do you want to get something to eat? Actually, that one's even a little hard because of the something. Do you want to play tennis? I often start with that one. Do you want to play tennis? Sure. Do you want to play tennis? Sure. There's a very strong rhythmic pattern to that one. Do you want to get some coffee? Do you want to get some coffee? Do you want to get something to eat? So that's a good one because it helps people project when they get started. Yeah, Jen, what were you going to say?
Yeah, you know, I once did this activity in class with like I had students in groups, so they sit in a circle, and then they take turns. One asks question, another say sure, but the third one asks the question, and you know.
Remember, these are not questions. These are not questions. These are invitations.
Yeah, invitation. Invite. Do you want to? Yeah.
So question makes relevant an answer.
Yeah.
An invitation makes questions accept.
Invitation and accept. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. You want to try that with Jane? Can you pick somebody else here and try that same thing with them? We use that. Do you want to get some coffee? Sure. Let's try that with somebody else here.
Okay. It seems like Wu Lao Shi is here with her camera on.
It'll be easier if that person turns their camera on.
Yeah, I should take that. Yeah. If we had time, we could go into like eight breakout rooms, but yeah.
Okay, somebody's raised their hand.
Zheng Lao Shi and Wu Lao Shi, you two can try. How's that?
Okay, let's try that. So
I will ask. Let me ask.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Zheng Lao Shi, would you like to answer? Okay.
Would you like something to eat?
Yes.
Okay, that's
I'm
great.
sorry, I'm so nervous.
That was a very eager. Yes, like, yes, absolutely.
I'm hungry.
Very hungry.
By the way, I do teach sure, and I teach yeah, and I also teach but I start with sure because students are so used to saying yes, I do, yes, I am, yes, I have. Those short answers, which, by the way, we should simply destroy, remove entirely from all textbooks. They are completely unnatural. So short answers, stop teaching them now. Rip those pages out of your textbook, burn them, never teach them. They are wrong, and preference organization tells us why they are wrong. Okay, but so this is why I usually start with sure, kind of breaks the pattern. But yeah, particularly very eager, yeah, like that is great. Okay, let's come back into the presentation. Okay. I always have to remember I need to stop my presentation each time I jump out, or I can't jump back into it. Okay. So preference in a preferred turn shape. Here's a very short description. The preferred turn shape is on time and short. On time and short. That's the preferred turn format. Do you want to go to the movie? Sure, sounds fun. On time, short. That is the preferred turn shape. And right away we can see what's wrong with no, I don't. No, I don't is the dispreferred action being done with the preferred turn shape. The dispreferred action is simply being done with the wrong grammar. And worse than that, no, I don't comes across as aggressive, angry, curt, and all the things we try to teach students not to be. Okay. So the importance of timing. Timing is very important. We're not used to timing being important in our language classroom. In fact, there are whole approaches to language teaching that suggest we need to give students thinking time. I feel that's deeply wrong. This idea that you ask a question, then you allow a student 10, 15 seconds to formulate an answer. One of the ways you can work on the importance of timing is counting in circles. Get your students arranged into circles and simply have them count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Of course, they can start off counting a little more slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And what you're working for is smoothness. Not speed of counting, really, but that it's rhythmic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3. And what you want to avoid is when it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Each of those irregularities represents a silence. So that's what I often start classes with, this circular counting. Once they can do it slowly, then I'll just increase the speed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. And then also then around in the circle, we'll do that. Do you want to play tennis? Sure. Do you want to play tennis? Sure. Do you want to play tennis? Sure. So emphasizing the importance of timing is something we need to bring back into a classroom. Okay, what about the dispreferred turn shape? In contrast, dispreferred next actions, rejecting, refusing, disagreeing, and in general, disaffiliating. So disaffiliating is a kind of larger term that somehow you're just not comfortable with the action, are regularly packaged using a well-documented and teachable set of practices. These practices can be broadly described as delaying the doing of the dispreferred action, thereby providing a warning. So in some ways, these are warning signs, like warning, 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 dispreferred action in the near future. So as opposed to online start of preferred actions, dispreferred actions are regularly preceded by a silence. Even a micro silence, a micro gap, can suggest an upcoming dispreferred response if it is noticeable to participants. Again, noticeable is the important word there. In our counting game, you'll hear people and it'll go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's maybe only 1/10 of a second, but every single student in the class will be able to hear that gap. If it's hearable, it's noticeable. If it's noticeable, it means something. So dispreferred actions and the dispreferred sequences that often turn into them typically include pauses, hesitation tokens, well, I don't know. These, by the way, are important pieces of English. We need to teach them. We need to allow students to say, hedges, sort of, kind of, a bit, etc. Repetitions, excuses, questions, and/or apologies. In many cases, they entirely avoid saying no. So there's a good point. Don't say no. You don't want to say no, and the other person doesn't want to hear no. So these are ways of avoiding saying no. Okay, say no to no. Okay, so let's look at what is the dispreferred turn shape. In the following example, a rejection gets postponed using a range of practices which both delay the dispreferred turn within, delay the dispreferred action within the turn, as well as push it downward within the sequence. when the dispreferred action finally does appear, it is as the very last word and the very last resort in a turn and the sequence. Ideally, it would not have occurred at all if the inviter had backed down, for example, by saying, well, maybe some other time. So, would you like to go to a movie? Yeah, I don't know. A movie? Uh-huh. When? On Saturday? Yeah, I don't know. I sort of got to do some stuff. So, I guess not. And there it is. Okay. Once again, I'm going to ask Jane to do this. So, Jane, I'm going to be A, you're going to be B. I want you to read with a kind of sad, slow voice what you see here. You ready for that, Jane?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to go to a movie?
I don't know. A movie?
Uh-huh.
When?
On Saturday.
I don't know. I sort of gotta do some stuff. I guess not.
Okay, good. By the way, there's this .hhh. What does that mean? It's a CH transcription thing. It's an in-breath. It's
Oh.
And really, even that in-breath says no. In Japanese, there's a sound that Japanese speakers do. They suck air in through their teeth. They go. Can you hear that, by the way?
Yes.
It's like the teeth that cause it. How about Chinese speakers? Do they have any sound that would be a similar kind of no sort of sound, an in-breath?
Somebody help me here.
Yeah, but that's the This is actually a breath that you're sucking in. Like the English speaker would go like. The Japanese speaker has the teeth goes. Okay, say, yeah, go ahead.
I don't think we have the sound in Chinese. No.
Okay, you don't do that in breath.
No.
Okay.
I think it's impolite.
Okay, well, that's a good point. That's a good point. Now, I think the thing is, like, here we're saying all cultures do these dispreferred turn warning signs, but the dispreferred warning signs for English may not be the same as the dispreferred warning signs for Chinese. And this is why if you have a Chinese students, you have to teach them the English warning signs. So for example, that yeah, that kind of stretched out, yeah, and not I don't know, but I don't know. Okay. So anyway, that was good. And that's what we need to get students doing. So would you like to go to a movie? No, I wouldn't. That's the worst possible answer. That's a slap in the face. It's me stepping forward and literally slapping you in the face with English, if you were to say that. And yet that is what we teach students to do. That is what the textbooks teach students to do. Would you like to go to a movie? Yes, I would. No, I wouldn't. Okay, we have to stop that immediately. Okay, now again, children are fairly natural about this. We simply have to allow naturalness to happen again in the classroom and recognize the unnaturalness of the material being taught in textbooks. Okay, so here are these warning signs. So know the warning signs. These are not the dispreferred actions themselves. These aren't the refusal. They aren't the rejection. They aren't the disagreement. These are the ones that warn of those things possibly coming up. I like to think of this as moving somewhat clockwise. So starting with silence. By the way, seems to be a little more common in British English, and a little more common with American English. This is what I've noticed just listening to Australians versus Brits. They're kind of going and Americans are going Okay, we have the all of this stretched out. That's what the colons mean. Yeah, I don't know. Well, repetition. Do you want to go to a movie? A movie, usually questioning intonation. Insert expansion. Do you want to go to a movie? Today? Yeah. Okay. Excuses. I'm a little bit busy. By the way, not I'm busy. You don't want to do that. I'm a little bit busy. I have some stuff I should do. Apology. And finally, hedge negation. So that was that. So I guess not. Now, again, we don't have to do all of these, but we'll pick a few of them. So we might do a silence, and then a yeah, and then a well, and then a repetition. So again, let's say Jane, I'll pick you again. I want you to give me a silence, well, and repetition. Those four warning signs. So silence.
What's repetition?
Well, and then you're repeating a word from my invitation.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to get some coffee?
Well, coffee?
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Now, make that coffee sound a little bit more negative. Now, it's not like coffee. It was like coffee. Okay, let's do another one.
Does someone else want to practice?
Okay, here's another one. So again, silence, yeah, I don't know, you choose. You know, whatever warning signs you want, and then a repetition.
Yes.
Ready? Okay.
The would like to practice.
Okay, well, let me try.
Want to try if I get the idea right. So may I practice that?
Okay, yeah. So let me go ahead and do the invitation, and then somebody give me that next one. So a silence, maybe, yeah, well, repetition. Okay. Do you want to play basketball?
Basketball?
Okay, that's good, but I only got a silence and then repetition. I only got 2 warning signs. Give me more warning signs. Give me a silence, maybe an maybe an I don't know, and then the repetition. Okay, let's try that again. So, do you want to play basketball? Do you want to play basketball?
Basketball?
No, I still just got 2. I want more. More warning. More warning. So silence.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well. Repetition. Okay. More warnings. Okay. One more time. One more time. So, do you want to play basketball?
Wow. Let me think. Well, basketball.
Okay.
I don't know.
Great. We actually got 8 warning signs. And typically, as soon as I hear maybe 3 or 4 of those warning signs, normally I would back off. So something like, so something like, you want to play basketball? Yeah, I don't know. Well, maybe some other time. Yeah, maybe some other time. Okay, so we need to teach these warning signs to students.
Yeah. I have a question. Normally, if we use that many, it sounds not natural. You know, if we don't want it, usually our response is very quick and just use 1 or 2. So I don't think we will use all of them at once.
No, by all means. And certainly it would be very odd if you had to go through all of these. The person you're talking to is not being sensitive to the situation. So let's give an example here. So again, Jane, then you ask me, do you want to go to the movies?
Don, do you want to go to the movies?
Yeah, I don't know. The movies? Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. When? Now, if you're hearing that many warning signs and not responding, there's something wrong with that interaction.
Yes.
Normally, after 1, 2, 3 warning signs, that's actually enough, and the person will say, "Oh, no, okay, yeah, no problem. Some other time."
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So we won't get all of these. This is really, you might get some of these.
That's right. So I would be saying something like to invite you to reconsider, right? The minute I hear so many different and yeah.
I mean, this is really a kind of pushing on your part to not accept my possible rejection. So once you get to the point of excuses and apologies and hedge negation, those are very negative things. We don't want to do those. Ideally, we want the person to back off after a silence, maybe, yeah, maybe, I don't know. That should be enough. And if they don't, then you have to be more aggressive in doing your rejection.
That's right.
And so the hedge negation is the strongest form. So I guess not. And there it is. We don't want to do that. We want to avoid doing it. And we want to avoid the sorry. So we don't want the apology to be at the very beginning. We don't want, for example, do you want to play basketball? Sorry. We'd like to have some other warning signs before we get to excuses, apologies, and hedge negation.
Oh, so when I get to the I don't know, then perhaps I'll say maybe some other time then.
Yeah. And the other person can then accept that with, yeah, maybe some other time. So maybe some other time. Yeah, maybe some other time.
So if I hadn't responded, that means I'm not, not knowing what you mean. And
there's always a possibility. This is something that we need to be aware of when we're dealing with non-native speakers.
Yes.
First of all, let me get rid of that. Non-native speaker is not a useful word. It is a category. Non-proficient users of a language may be having legitimate comprehension problems. So as far as if you say, hey, would you like to have a beach barbecue? Their silence and may actually be displaying a lack of understanding of the actual words involved. So we need to be sensitive to that. But it's also important to understand, for the students to understand, that the native speakers, the proficient speakers they interact with, don't care and aren't aware of their perhaps comprehension problems.
Yeah.
People are very sympathetic towards grammar problems, but not so sympathetic towards these sorts of problems.
Yeah, we have a question from Zheng Laoshi.
Yeah, please.
Yes, I just want to make sure I get this concept right, okay? Because those warning signs is not only warning for whoever received the information, it's also we need to know when we pass the invitation, we also need to pay attention the response, and also whoever received the warning whoever received the invitation also try to respond, and hopefully the speaker can notice that my warning sign. So that is kind of like a both way. It's not a one way.
Yeah, it should
just
be.
like we are practicing that. When we are practicing that, hopefully, if I practice with Dr. Carol, when you invite me something, and when I say longer, say more negative, not a negative sign, it's a warning sign, and I hope you can stop me in the middle.
Right.
Instead of I go through all
this
of
is what I do in class. I mean, I do give, once we practice these basic ones, I give the students that, well, maybe some other time. Yeah, some other time. Think of it as sort of an escape sequence. So then they'll practice that invitation, warning signs, escape sequence. So gives them that sort of back and forth that you were talking about. Now, I should also mention, we've been talking about invitations, but these warning signs are parts of a dispreferred turn shape. So while they go with invitations, they also go with requests. Can I borrow your car? Yeah.
It's
well,
okay.
My
Don't
car,
worry
my
about
car.
that.
So the thing is, it's not just invitations, it's requests, it's opinions, it's any of the dispreferred next actions. And I think right now, for like what's on the screen here, I believe needs to be taught in English classes because students don't know these English practices. They don't know that, yeah. They don't know, I don't know. They don't know how to do an English excuse. They may not know how to do an English apology. They don't know how to do a hedged negation in English. They know how to do these things in their first language. They do them every day, but they don't necessarily know how to do them in the target language.
Thinking back, I think, yeah, we don't have this in our curriculum. Like I'm not sure how many teachers here have explained this to your students.
Yeah, it's not at all. Now, again, like I would say, if you're teaching at a junior high or high school or college student, these can be directly taught. I mean, you could actually say, today we're going to practice this. If you're talking about elementary school, young learners, then I think it's more about allowing opportunities for these things to occur naturally. So instead of, like, for example, instead of insisting that they speak a certain way when responding to invitations. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's continue on here. So reacting to warnings. So quite often, foreshadowing a possible upcoming, though not yet produced, dispreferred action is enough to cause the prior speaker to back down or modify what was said. Now, this next one is an actual real example. B says, and that's not an awful lot of fruitcake. So imagine you're dividing up the fruitcake, and typically fruitcake, you tend to cut it up in little slices. Say, and that's not an awful lot of fruitcake. Then there's a 1 second silence, and that's all it takes. That 1 second silence is enough of a warning of disagreement that B actually reverses his position. So, and that's not an awful lot of fruitcake. Of course it is. A little bit goes a long way. So I think if we've all had fruitcake, you know that a small piece of fruitcake is probably all you want to eat. Nobody wants to have a huge slice of fruitcake. It's very dense. Typically a small slice goes a long way. So that little silence and nothing else. A hasn't said anything, but B hears the silence. hears possible disagreement, reverses, and says the opposite. And that's not a lot of fruitcake. That's not an awful lot of fruitcake. Of course, it is. A little bit goes a long way, and now immediately A comes in with agreement with that. Well, that's right. Agreeing with B's second readjustment. Okay, we're going to skip the second one just for time problem, but same kind of thing. Okay, dispreferred sequence. Note that not only are there dispreferred next actions, remember, so for example, invite, reject, request, refuse. So not only are there dispreferred next actions, there are also dispreferred sequence. Shegloff, 2007, identifies at least 3 types of preference in sequence. So there appears to be a preference for offer sequences over request sequences. That is, request sequences are dispreferred. We don't like to do requests. This is one reason why we use pre-pre's. Those pre-pre's allow us to avoid doing a request. 2, there prefers to be a preference for noticing by others over announcement by self. There appears to be a preference for a party to be recognized, if possible or relevant, over self-identification. Let's take that one on a phone. Ring, ring, ring. Hello, it's John. Well, ideally, you shouldn't have to say it's John. The person should be able to recognize your voice. But I think I'd like to really come back to the example of number 1, preference of offers over requests. Okay, participants often work to avoid doing a request at all. For example, by telling trouble instead of formulating a request, which regularly occasions a preemptive offer of assistance. So my article 2012 deals with this. So instead of saying, could I borrow your pen? You walk up to somebody, you lean over to your classmate and you say, I need a pen. And they are most likely then to offer that. This is what we do all the time. We walk into a hotel and we say, I need a double bed and a room with a double bed. You tell your problem, and it's very simple things like, I need some, I need to, I don't have, I can't, there isn't, there aren't any. Generally bad news. My car got a flat tire. I lost my keys. These are very simple sorts of trouble tellings, and they regularly produce a preemptive offer of assistance. So tell a problem, don't make a request. This is the first thing, and we should be teaching that. And of course, this is what we naturally do. Okay. So here's some observations that Shegloff made on requests. Number 1, requests appear disproportionately, appear disproportionately to occur late in conversations and seem especially problematic and unlikely to occur in the first topic position. So we postpone requests. Number 2, requests are regularly accompanied by accounts, mitigate, candidates' excuses for the recipient, etc., which are done in advance of the request itself. So things like, I'm really having some problems with my car. I've tried to fix it. There's a mitigation. I've tried to fix it. There are all kinds of things I've tried. All of this before the request. 3, as with other sensitive or delicate conversational practices, the occurrence may occur, the occurrence of one may license the occurrence of others. So if I make a request, you might make a request. 4. One evidence of the treatment of requests as dispreferred is masking them as other actions, often as ostensible offer. Okay, I'll tell you a story here. This is a real life story from one of a British colleague teaching English in Japan and his Japanese wife. So his Japanese wife's English wasn't fantastic, but they went back for the first time to meet his family in the UK. And they were having dinner, and his mother asked the Japanese wife, "Would you like to make a salad? Would you like to make a salad?" She heard that as an invitation, and she said, "No, thank you," which absolutely was not the right response there. This was a request being hidden as an offer or an invitation. So, would you like to set the table? Is not an invitation. It's a hidden request. But these are the kind of things that people that are still learning a language may not, in fact, be sensitive to. Number 5, the preferred response to a pre-request is not a go-ahead. This simply forwards the request to a first pair part, that is the request, which is the less preferred way of implementing the project at home. The preferred response is to preempt the need for the request altogether. So, pre-request. Do you know how to fix a camera? Would you like me to take a look at your camera? That would be the preferred response. Okay. I'm sort of looking at our time again here. We've ultimately come up to another break time, but I would like to go a little further here. Preference and adjacency pair expansion. Okay, actually, let's stop here. We'll come back to this screen in about 10 minutes. Okay, see you in 10. Okay, see you in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, and we're back.
Welcome back.
Okay, I'm looking at some of the comments. So, would you like to make coffee? Would you like to make coffee? Again, there's a request that's been hidden as an invitation, as an offer. I would say, I mean, that would be an awkward sort of response there. Would you like to make coffee? No, thanks. First of all, that kind of breaks one of our rules. First of all, no can't occur in the initial position. So according to the dispreferred turn shape, if you have a no, it should at the very least be at the end. So something like, let's change it. Would you like to make coffee? Let's see, how would I respond? I think better might be, for example, I'm not really a coffee drinker.
Yeah, the thing is, in the textbooks always, come with the no thanks or a direct response.
So I'm now rewriting it. So no, I'm not really a coffee drinker. So thanks, but
no thanks.
Yeah. So notice I've now rewritten it so that the no occurs absolutely last in the turn format. So that's what we should be seeing. I'm not really a coffee drinker, so thanks, but yeah, I guess no. Again, we're giving a lot of more. I'm not really a coffee drinker, so thanks, but I've already given you 6 warning signs. That should be enough for you to know that my response is negative here. I shouldn't actually have to say no. I should be able to avoid that. Okay, now it is an interesting question to say, for example, to what extent are people in one culture versus another more direct about these things than not? There's no doubt that we can be very direct with people in our immediate family. You want to go to the movies? No. That's perfectly okay within your own family, with your friends. It's not okay in more social situations. The same way, but we could say, well, how far does that social casualness extend? Would it be okay to say, do you want to get something to one of your colleagues? For example, do you want to get some coffee? No. Is that okay with a colleague? It's probably okay with your brother. Okay with your spouse, probably not okay with a colleague. Okay, let's jump back in.
Do you think we should include all these warnings in a textbook conversation?
The thing is, what I've found, like I produced my little textbook, and it's not quite a textbook, my little booklet does include these things. But what I found is that over time, people are so reliant on the printed page that actually interferes with them responding naturally. So now I'm teaching all the same stuff, but I'm not using the textbook anymore. So in that sense, it's useful for teachers, but somehow to create the environment within the class that people will naturally do these things. I mean, personally, if we're going to write textbook dialogues, then I think those textbook dialogues should include more of these things. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Back into the presentation. Okay. So where we were here. Okay. So requests are special. That's, I think, the biggest point we can make here. Requests are special. We like to avoid them. And that seems to be more or less true in most of the societies that we have studied, although some indications, for example, that perhaps in small tribal communities in the Amazon rainforests, perhaps people don't do this much work, possibly because they're all known to each other. You may have a tribe of 100 people, and all of those people are intimate friends or family. Perhaps these things are not necessary in that sense. Okay, so I'm going to skip that. So coming to a primary example, this comes from a paper by Anita Pomerantz, 1984, Preference Organization in Agreeing and Disagreeing. I guess before that, in school, what we teach, what the textbooks teach is, I agree and I think so too. I agree and I think so too. Both of those are problematic, and we'll look at why they are problematic. Okay, so the first thing that Pomerantz noticed is that an opinion is followed by another opinion. And that's such an obvious thing, but something that we don't necessarily think about. So these are examples from Pomerantz's paper. It's a beautiful day out, isn't it? Yeah, it's just gorgeous. So, opinion, opinion. It's really a clear lake, isn't it? It's wonderful. Opinion, opinion. Isn't he cute? Oh, he's adorable. Opinion, opinion. She was a nice lady. I liked her. I liked her too. Opinion, opinion. Okay, so that's the very first thing. And learners are stumped. You know, go up to one of your learners, one of your even high school, one of your university learners, and say, it's a beautiful day out, isn't it? They will have no idea what to say next. No idea. And they will just, maybe one of them will eventually say something like, yes. Maybe somebody will say no.
That's awkward.
But nobody has this sense that I give an opinion, you give an opinion. It's a very, very simple thing, but students, even advanced learners, haven't figured that out because it's not presented in any of their materials. Okay, so here's another quote by Pomerantz. So in general, dispreferred action turn organization serves as a resource to avoid or reduce the occurrence of overtly stated instances of an action. The preference structure that has just been discussed, agreement preferred, disagreement dispreferred, is the one in effect and operative for the vast majority of assessment pairs. So overall, agreement is preferred, disagreement is dispreferred. To put another way, across different situations, conversants orient to agreeing with another as comfortable, supportive, reinforcing, perhaps as being sociable, and as showing that they are like-minded. Likewise, across a variety of situations, conversants orient to their disagreeing with one another as uncomfortable, unpleasant, difficult, risking threat, insult, or offense. So we really, really work to agree with each other as a social bonding activity. We really, really avoid disagreeing with each other as a socially uncomfortable thing to do. So, second assessment can either agree or disagree with the first assessment. In most, but not all situations, agreement is the preferred next action, and disagreement is the dispreferred next action. Pomerantz also noticed that preferred next action turns shared common characteristics. For example, they are frequently produced immediately after the first pair part. Also, these turns are typically fairly short and direct. Disagreeing turns also share common characteristics. They are typically delayed and longer, or involve more turns, and regularly include pauses, questions, questioning repetitions, requests for clarifications, repair initiators, what, etc. Okay, said in a very simple way, Pomerantz was the first person to suggest that there were turn shapes. Preferred turn shapes are on time and short. On time and short. Dispreferred next actions are delayed and long. Those are the two turn shapes she described in her paper. On time, short, delayed, and long. Okay, so how do we do agreeing? Well, she described 3 types of agreeing assessments. The first one she looked at was what she's called upgrades, so somehow going stronger. Very simple thing. We'll look at the examples. Okay, upgrade. So upgrades are uttered or worded in a way that is stronger than the first assessment, and as such display strong agreement. Okay, I'd like to start with the simplest form, and that is stronger and louder. It was fun. Yeah, fun. Stronger, louder, longer. It was difficult. Yeah, difficult. It was cold. Yeah, cold. That's the simplest way to do an upgrade. Repeat the word. Yeah, repeat the word in a longer, stronger, louder form. It was unusual. Yeah, unusual. It was fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. That's so easy, and we don't teach it. There's no textbook that teaches a student how to do upgrade like that. Second, actually, I'm going to go with B here down below because that's really, 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 really easy. An intensifier, really. It was fun. Yeah, really fun. It was easy. Yeah, really easy. It was cold. Yeah, really cold. And again, I'm going to pick on Jane here. I'm going to have you do those second assessments with yeah, really, and then repeat my word. Okay?
Yeah,
so
I'm ready.
Let's try one. I'm going to say, okay, it was cold.
Yeah, really cold.
Good, right. It was hot.
Yeah, really hot.
It was boring.
Yeah, really boring.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
I didn't get the really there.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Okay. It was outrageous.
Yeah, it was really outrageous.
Okay, now I'm going to throw a curve at you.
Oh, no.
It was really fun.
Yeah, it was really, really fun.
Perfect. Excellent. Okay, it was really, really fun.
It was really, really, really fun.
Okay, good. Now we don't normally do that, but think of this is something it requires zero English. Every student, the most elementary level, we can teach them these upgrades with really. Very, of course, very, extremely, awfully, really seems particularly common in casual conversation. But literally, simply, yeah, really, repeat the word. Yeah, really, repeat the word. I could teach that to elementary school first graders. It's such a simple pattern. Okay, so since that is the simplest pattern, I always kind of begin with that. Now, A here, that's a little harder. It's a little harder because now we need more vocabulary. We need vocabulary words that are ranked not in terms of meaning, but strength. So adorable is stronger than cute. Gorgeous is stronger than beautiful. Now, again, students will have to learn vocabulary in sequences of words. I like to start out with the ones of, for example, pretty, beautiful, gorgeous. Well, pretty is fine. Like, she's pretty. Yeah, beautiful. She's beautiful. Yeah, gorgeous. Well, you're stepping up to a stronger adjective. And of course, for that, you need to have the vocabulary. You need to know the word gorgeous. You need to know the word adorable. If you don't know that vocabulary, well, that's okay. You could just say, he's cute. Yeah, really cute. It's beautiful. Yeah, really beautiful. So this one is a little harder for learners because they need to have sequences of vocabulary. So I like to give them one. Here's one that I use with students. We imagine you're talking about fishing. I went fishing and the fish I caught was big. Say, yeah, huge. Yeah, enormous. Yeah, gigantic. Yeah, humongous. So each of these words is a stronger word than the previous one. So it's big, yeah, huge. It's huge, yeah, enormous. It's enormous, yeah, gigantic. It's gigantic, yeah, humongous. Okay, again, I'm going to pick on Jane here, and I'll have you go up in these, and then I'll have you pick somebody else and do it with them.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was big.
Yeah, huge.
It was huge.
Yeah, enormous.
It was enormous.
Yeah, gigantic.
It was gigantic.
Yeah, humongous.
Okay, now you pick somebody and do that same sequence with them.
Okay, the whole sequence, or can we do,
yeah, you
like,
start with big.
Can we do like one sequence and then the other would do the next one? Yeah,
if you want to do it that way, yeah.
So
and by the way, there's no rule that says you have to go to the just next one.
Or
you might say, for example, it's big. Yeah, humongous.
Oh yeah.
Okay. If you want a really, really strong agreement, you can jump up 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
Okay, let's try that out with some different people.
Rini, would you like to do it?
Try. Okay.
It's enormous.
It's huge.
I'll see there. But there's a problem. You went down.
You went down.
I went down.
You went from enormous down to huge.
Enormous.
You have then disagreed. It's like, it was enormous. Yeah, huge. Yeah,
huge.
It was enormous. Yeah, it was big.
Huge.
So we need a stronger word. Okay, let's do that again.
It's gigantic.
It's humongous.
Yeah.
Good. So humongous. Okay. Let's do another one.
Yeah, Rini, would you like to pick someone else? I'll ask Professor Wu to interact with you. Professor Wu. Okay, Rini, go ahead.
It was huge. It's enormous.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Jane, I'm going to throw you another curve here. It was humongous.
Yeah, really humongous.
Good job. Okay, good. If you don't have a word, you just put in really.
I don't know any word bigger than humongous.
I don't either. I don't either.
Gigantic.
Okay, somebody else want to try this?
No, gigantic.
It's unbelievable.
Well, you could say, but see, that's really that's kind of like saying it's unbelievably humongous.
Unbelievable.
So this would be the same category of word as very humongous, really humongous, extremely humongous, unbelievably humongous, an intensifier.
Mm-hmm. Johnny, you're here. Would you like to interact with us? Or perhaps you can't get your mics on. Okay. So Professor, would you like to, anybody else?
Well, since nobody want to pick up this task, I will jump in.
Yay. Good.
So who's going to start?
So you start. Just say like.
I start.
Oh, yeah.
It's huge.
Rini.
Oh, we need a second person.
Rini coming in. What are you waiting for?
Sorry, can we repeat? Sorry.
Okay, let's start that again. Go ahead.
All right. Listen, it's huge.
It's gigantic.
Okay.
Really? That's what you can do?
Really? Kind of.
Okay.
Let's put your little envelope here. Okay, Jan.
Yes?
It's gigantic.
Yeah. Humongous.
All right, your turn.
Okay. It's enormous.
It's way beyond your imagination.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
There you go.
That's upgrade, right?
Now, by the way, this is very nice to do in the circle as well.
Yeah.
Where they just have to go around. Each one does a stronger thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I have another sequence here going the other way. So these are stronger words, but this time instead of going from big to humongous, we're going from small to itsy bitsy teeny weeny. So small, like it's small, yeah, tiny. It's tiny, yeah, teeny. It's teeny, yeah, itsy bitsy. Yeah, it's itsy bitsy, yeah, itsy bitsy teeny weeny. Okay, somebody want to try one of those?
Self-volunteer.
It's so small.
Yeah, tiny. Joy, go ahead.
It's so tiny.
It's teensy busy.
So first of all, I think we should have a yeah at the beginning of that term. So it's tiny, yeah, teeny. So two parts to that, the yeah agreement particle and then the upgraded adjective. Okay, again, let's hear a few.
It's teeny.
Yes, it's teeny. It's
that was the same. That was the same. Yeah, itsy bitsy.
Okay.
Let's try that again.
Okay.
It's teeny.
It's itsy busy.
Okay, yeah, itsy bitsy.
Busy.
Okay, good.
It's itsy bitsy.
Yeah, it's itsy bitsy teeny weeny.
Itsy bitsy teeny weeny. There was a song. There was a song from the '60s about a girl that goes out in her polka dot bikini for the tide. She wore her itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini.
What's that song? I want to learn that song.
Yeah. So if you look at YouTube, you can find that song. Itsy bitsy. Yeah. So yellow polka dot bikini is the name of the song.
Yellow polka dot.
Yellow polka dot bikini.
Okay.
Yeah, polka dot
And
bikini.
sometimes I show that to students when I'm doing this.
That's
okay.
Great.
Let's continue on. Okay. Now we have same evaluation. So we had upgrades. And number 2 here is same evaluation. So think of it, the same intensity. So this was the problem we had, was it was big, yeah, big. It was big, yeah, big. It was huge, yeah, huge. It was small, yeah, small. That's the same intensity. So she was a nice lady. I liked her. I liked her too. Same intensity. He's terrific. Yeah, he is. Same intensity. So in this case, these same evaluations can regularly be found in agreement terms, but they also frequently preface disagreement and should therefore be considered weak agreements. So it's something like, he's terrific. He is. But she was a nice lady. I liked her. I liked her too. But so these same evaluations quite regularly occur before disagreements, or they suggest a possible disagreement. So that's what we have at the bottom of the page here. EFL learners are taught I agree and I think so too, which are same evaluations, thus displaying weak agreement, suggesting possible disagreement. So when you say I agree, in my mind, I hear the next word as but. When you say I think so too, in my mind, I am already hearing but. It was a good movie. Yeah, I think so too. But it was kind of long. It was a good movie. I agree. But the special effects were a little weak.
Does it have to follow by but?
It is quite regular. In fact, if we kind of pump these sort of things into the concordance software, we will regularly find I agree followed by but. So think of these. The point is these two, I agree and I think so too, are weak agreements, and they suggest possible upcoming disagreement. If we truly want to agree, we should do an upgrade. If we're maybe going to disagree, these sorts of weak agreements or same evaluations are useful for that. Okay, so I agree. Again, if we do concordance with corpus, we'll find I agree is regularly followed in those concordance examples with but. I think so too, but. And what we get in conversation is I think I agree, silence, but. I think so too, silence, but. Okay. Now from that, we can go to downgrades. And that's what we were accidentally getting the other day. So she's a fox. By the way, this is an actual example, but it shows that this example is kind of coming from the 1970s. I don't think people use that anymore. But used to be a really, really beautiful girl was a fox. Okay, she's a fox. Yeah, she's a pretty girl. You don't want that. It's like, that's beautiful. Isn't it pretty? Downgrade. Now, when people hear the downgrade, they hear it as the disagreement, and then they often go even stronger, as the example at the bottom of the page, like, she's a fox. Yeah, she's a pretty girl. Oh, she's gorgeous. So let me put kind of, so you can maybe see it in the camera. So fox is at this level. Pretty girl is a step down. Gorgeous is 2 steps up. Actually, gorgeous is above fox. Okay, so these are downgrade assessments. They're technically not yet disagreement. They are warnings that I disagree with you. So she's a fox. I don't really agree. Yeah, she's a pretty girl. That's beautiful. Isn't it pretty? Downgrade. She's a fox. Yeah, she's a pretty girl. Oh, actually, I'm not reading that probably. She's a fox. Yeah, She's a pretty girl. Oh, she's gorgeous. Okay, let me go forward once. So here are the basic patterns involved here. So pattern number one, where you have two basic patterns for disagreements. Now, these are the actual disagreements. We have tokens and delays followed by strong disagreement. Well, never mind. It's not important. Well, it is important. So there's the well, there's the delaying token, and then the strong pronunciation of is. It is important. Pattern number two, tokens, delays, weak agreement, weak disagreement. But you admit he's having fun and you think it's funny. I think it's funny, yeah, but it's ridiculous funny. So there's no strong disagreement there, but certainly disagreement. I'm looking at our time. I want to make sure we get through. Okay, here's that, the impact of unstated disagreement, the same example we saw before. A silence after an assessment can be heard as a sign of potential future disagreement. As a result, prior speaker may choose to continue, Rule 1C, with something designed to deal with this potential disagreement even before it occurs, as in the following case, where B states an opinion, then backs down from the original assessment. And that's not an awful lot of fruitcake. Of course it is. A little piece goes a long way. Okay, disagreement as a dispreferred next action. Remember, normally the preferred next action is agreement. So while agreement is the preferred action in most situations, it is not the preferred action in all situations. One situation where it is not the preferred action is after self-deprecating assessment. That is, when the prior speaker said something negative about him or herself. Pomerantz states, if criticizing a co-conversant is viewed as impolite, hurtful, and wrong as a dispreferred action, a conversant may hesitate, hedge, or even minimally disagree rather than agree with the criticism. Okay, let's give one before we read those. Here's a very simple one. I'm an idiot. I agree. Well, that certainly wouldn't be the right thing to say. It's like, I'm an idiot. You sure are. I'm an idiot, a total idiot. Well, certainly doing that as the preferred next action is not preferred here. So if I'm criticizing myself, disagreement becomes the preferred next action. Okay, so let's look at these real examples then. B says, I'm trying to get slim. Yeah? You get slim? You don't need to get any slimmer. Okay, so they're disagreeing with the assumption that that person needs to go on a diet. There's another one. I'm so dumb, I don't even know it. No, you're not dumb. So there's a direct disagreement. Now notice, by the way, the packaging there. The packaging disagreement is now a preferred action. And because it's now a preferred action, we use the preferred turn shape. I'm so dumb, I don't even know it. No. The no is right at the beginning, just where it should be with a preferred turn shape. And then the disagreement. No, you're not dumb. By the way, the yeah in front of the yeah, almost certainly that's not the yes, no, but that's yeah as in you're. Yeah, no, you're not dumb. So the little yeah that was cut off there is the you that was said later on. Okay. Now, here we have a problem. Sometimes there are cross-cutting preferences, one preference says do this, another preference says do this. How do you do them both at the same time? And so I'll just read that. There can be situations in which multiple preferences are at work. For example, there's a preference for agreeing with assessments. However, doing self-praise is dispreferred. So how are participants supposed to deal with compliments, which come packaged as assessments? Pomerantz demonstrates that it is the constraints imposed by the cross-cutting preferences that account for the manner in which most compliment responses are designed. So compliment responses are designed to deal with a problem. In the following examples, the compliment is downgraded or minimized, but not outright rejected. Remember, rejection or disagreement would be a dispreferred. But if you can do something else instead of disagreement, that solves the problem. Oh, it was just beautiful. Well, thank you. Accepting. But I thought it was quite nice. So quite nice is a downgrade from beautiful. Good shot. Not very solid, though. Downgrade. You're a good rower. You're a good rower, Hunter. These are easy to row. Downgrade. Very light. Okay. Why preference organization matters. Why should we bother to include this in our textbook material in how we organize activities in class? Preference principles play a part in the selection and interpretation of referring expressions, repair, turn taking, the progression through a sequence of actions. In addition, there are contexts in which participants orient to multiple preference principles. Sometimes these multiple principles are in conflict with one another, and in those circumstances, participants use systematic practices to manage the conflicts involved. Preference organization is fundamental to the structure of talk and interaction and to navigating our social world. Preference organization has implications for the design of both questions and their replies, which we'll look at next week. Guiding learners towards understanding the practices proficient English speakers use to handle both preferred and dispreferred action will help them interact with fewer social problems. Research on preference organization demonstrates how inappropriate or just plain grammatically wrong the so-called short answers common to virtually every EFL textbook are. Do you want to go to a movie? No, I don't. This is structurally incorrect because a dispreferred action, rejection, has been packaged using the preferred turn shape. As a result, teachers and textbooks are actually teaching students how to act curt and hostile. Okay, I'll skip that last paragraph there. And I'm actually going to skip that as well. And this one we'll look at next week. Okay, very quickly here. At the beginning, we said, well, do I teach grammar? What is grammar from a CA perspective? Well, grammar, of course, is the model of closely ordered, routinely observable social activities. So I love this picture. In this picture, this priest and hundreds of other priests for hundreds of years have been coming and standing on this particular board to pray. Day after day, year after year, century after century. And after all of that activity, year after year of habitual activity, they have created this pattern in the board. Well, that footprint in the board, that's grammar. Grammar is what is left over from repeated social interaction. I'm going to skip reading those as well, other than to say grammar reflects interaction. And then we can ask ourselves, did the canyon make the river? No, clearly not. Or did the river make the canyon? The river, the action, the interaction causes the canyon to exist. And over time, the canyon changes. So interaction has created the grammar that we know. And over time, interaction will change, and it will change the grammar. Okay. And I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to, if we have time, we'll come back to this on another day. Keeping it real, how to reimagine textbook dialogues to make them more natural. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here. And I said I wanted to make sure we have time to have some discussion, some conversation, some question and answers. So now's your chance. Jump into chat or just voice your question, anything.
We have a question from Rini in the chat. Rini, would you like to ask the question? Grab the mic and elaborate.
Yeah, I would like to know, because I think maybe the personal preferences play a big role, because I observe like some people prefer to say it implicitly, like giving clues, like what we learned today.
Right.
But some others people prefer to say it like explicitly, like no, just straightforward like that. Despite of because we have Taiwanese.
Yeah, no, there's a very good point there, really central point, and that is people vary. These are not rules that must be followed, but they are the rules that we orient to. So, for example, some particular person may not do these things, but that doesn't mean the people they interact with are not interpreting them in the way. So if I'm direct, well, somebody may perceive me as direct and hostile and curt and rude, which is sort of okay if that's actually sort of how you are. But we want to make sure that we're not actually training students to be in a way that they're not intending to be. So think of all of this as interpretive. Everything about interpretive. So if you walk through a crowded market, if somebody bumps into you, you have a right to say, why did they bump into me? Is it just the crowds? Is it that the person is somehow not paying attention? Are they incapacitated? Is the person drunk? So whatever happens is an opportunity to interpret why it's like that. So, but it's absolutely true. Some people, and I think some cultures, are more likely to be a little more direct. Although from what we've looked at so far, it's not the case. You can't say something like Americans are direct and Japanese are indirect. That's simply false. The Japanese use different ways of being indirect. And so again, that varies perhaps from culture to culture. But I believe it's probably true to say some cultures don't have as much need for these things. I mentioned the idea of research in very small Amazon Indian tribes seem not to have these pre-sequences, for example. They might just walk up and say, give me your boat. And there's no consequence for being that direct. But again, chances are all these people know each other. They're related to each other by family or marriage. Possibly you don't need these things in these very smaller communities. All right, I think that's a good question. Okay.
Thank you, Rini, for your question. Anyone else?
And this could be on anything we've covered so far. Just any general question you have about CA. We've got like 15 minutes to just sort of talk about whatever.
Yeah, Winnie, please go ahead. Winnie? We can't hear you, although you're unmuted.
Now, by the way, you can also type
Yeah,
your question in chat if you want to do that.
Yeah, if your mic isn't working, perhaps you could.
Yes, we can hear you, Winnie.
Oh, really? Can you hear Winnie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So some people can hear Winnie, but some can't. Is that right?
Yeah, I definitely don't hear her.
I don't hear her.
Maybe the connection problem.
So, Michelle, can you rephrase her question because we can't hear her?
All right, Winnie, can you please state your question again?
Yeah, or type it.
Okay, maybe you can just say your question and I'll say it again for the rest.
Well, that's so weird.
Well, since we're not getting some active questioning here, let me quickly, I'm going to jump back to the presentation. We're going to look at the textbook dialogue and what's wrong with them. And then we'll have more time to do lots of questions next week.
Okay.
Hold on a second then.
Professor Wu asked, where could we get the authentic dialogue?
Right. Well, let's take a look at that. Okay, hold on a second. There's a lot of clicking as I have to get into my screen. Higher screen. Okay, let's run through that. Okay, first, let me address that question. Where can I get real conversation? Let's forget textbook dialogues for right now, but where can I actually get, if you want to see real conversation, there is a website called TalkBank. So T-A-L-K, bank, B-A-N-K. This is a corpus of actual CA transcripts. And you can download and look at real talk at this website. TalkBank, I think it's just talkbank.com. But if you Google TalkBank as one word, it'll come to that. And then you'll actually have real bits of dialogue, real bits of conversation that you can look at. Okay, let's look at the problems, typical. So first of all, we have this awful stuff, just awful stuff. The first one here, my shopping must come to an end. That comes from one of the NHK English programs on TV in Japan today. That's Nihon Broadcasting Company. My shopping must come to an end. I mean, nobody in this century would ever say that. And then we have this absolutely ridiculous aerobics English, where you have the three girls in their aerobic outfits and they do aerobics while repeating the English phrases. Like, I have a bad case of diarrhea. I have a bad case of diarrhea. I have a bad case of diarrhea. And then they go through each line. It's 4 or 5 lines. And they have several of these. If you can actually Google the skillful abbot, what you see at the top there, the skillful abbot, and you will find these. They're just horrendously ridiculous. But the point is, people have these because they simply don't care about authenticity. They're looking at as a grammar sentence. I have a adjective case of noun. Okay. Now, here's a textbook dialogue. Speaking, Basics in Speaking by Rost. It looks like a fairly good dialogue. Do you want to go with us? Where are you going? To a karaoke bar? Oh gosh, no, I can't sing karaoke. What? Everybody can sing karaoke. No, really, I can't. It's impossible. I'm a terrible singer. Oh, come on. I'll teach you some easy songs. Well, that looks pretty good. I mean, you know, if we compare it with I have a bad case of diarrhea, well, this is hugely better. But this is still lacking the fine-grained details that we find in true interaction. Okay, now we can maybe end with this, with a general discussion. I'll leave this on the screen, and then we can say, what is wrong with this? This comes directly from one of the sort of first-year university level EFL textbooks. Hello? Hey, Kelly, it's Emily. What are you doing? I'm studying. What are you doing? I'm studying English. What are you doing? Or what are you studying? English. How about you? I'm reading a book about China. That's nice. Actually, I'm not studying. Yeah, me neither. I'm watching a movie. Me too. What are you watching? I'm watching Harry Potter. No way. Me too. Now, I mean, I think we all know, and even students know, that this is artificial. But what can we say about it? What is artificial? There are many things. Can you jump in with some suggestions for what is artificial here? So somebody, rule 1B, self-selection.
It's anything man-made.
And like, how do we know that this is man-made? What is it? Why does it look?
That's a good question. That's $1 million question. I don't even know.
So what is unnatural about this? This is one of the things that if we study conversation analysis, we have a better insight into what is wrong specifically with this.
I guess the possibility of a coincidence just quite impossible.
Okay.
I think we're just so like, we see this a lot that it becomes so natural to us. We can't see the difference.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll go to the next slide here to say, this is the most obvious thing. What are you doing? I'm studying. What are you doing? I'm studying too. What are you studying? I'm reading a book. I'm not studying. I'm watching.
Oh, that's right.
So overwhelmingly, this has been contrived to present the present continuous tense. Well, you know, that doesn't happen. This is a grammar exercise to how to use the present continuous tense, which, you know, I suppose in some ways that's fine. If you want to use it for that purpose, you're reinforcing the structure of the present continuous with both the are. Do we have an is there? Are and am. We don't have any is. And we have negative and positive statements. But this is not a conversation.
Well,
but we can go beyond this and say, okay, beyond this, what's wrong with it?
I don't know about the beyond this, but you know, back to the this dialogue being contrived to present the grammar. It is true that within one unit, we need to present the same grammar pattern, like in elementary school at least twice, but here we see it 4 times, and that's very common in textbook dialogue writing.
Yeah, well, see, again, what this suggests is that even at the elementary school level, you have a grammar syllabus. Even if you may not think of yourself as being a grammar teacher following a grammar syllabus. Your textbook almost certainly has a grammar syllabus bias. And if you're following the textbook, you are teaching grammar from a grammar syllabus perspective. Let's just take the very first thing there, the hello. Oh, sorry, hello. Let me ask you a simple question. Is that a first pair part or a second pair part?
Second pair part, because it's a phone
Exactly.
conversation.
It's a second pair part. What is the adjacency pair there? Do you remember?
The adjacency pair?
What's the name of that pair? I'll give you this one. This is reply.
Yeah, that's a telephone ring with a...
Yeah, but yes, that's it. So it's summons, reply, summons, reply.
Summons, reply,
The first pair part, the ringing, is missing from the conversation. So right away, we have something that we can observe there and say, it's missing. It's missing in this dialogue. It is missing in every textbook dialogue you will ever find. Be simple enough to remedy that. Just put in a prior turn that goes ring, 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 hello. Then students realize this is not a greeting. It's not hello, but it is in fact a second pair part response to the telephone ringing. Okay, so we've actually got a couple minutes.
Wait,
yeah.
Yeah, someone has a question.
Okay, I have a question. If that is a telephone conversation, so that is a Kelly, maybe that is a Emily called Kelly or Kelly called Emily. If that is a Emily called Kelly, right?
Okay,
I'm assuming that is Emily.
Kelly is the call receiver. Emily is the call maker. Yeah.
Okay. That's the first question I have from this conversation before Dr. Carol asking. So I'm wondering if this is a conversation, that would be, it's a kind of unnatural if we call somebody, is just ask what are you doing, and I think that this is a very standard the textbook for kids to practice some kind of sentence pattern, because we try to use repeating and just use this way to practice. That's why we use a lot of same sentence pattern.
I think repetition is useful, but if repetition becomes kind of automatic or robotic, then you could say, what are you doing? There's a lot of different ways that could be responded to. So what are you doing? One sort of response could be nothing much.
Yeah.
That is, what are you doing in that sense might be heard as a pre-invitation. And saying nothing much says, go ahead with your invitation.
I totally agree that that would be in the real reality. It won't be like a conversation like this. But for the students, if they didn't learn that much yet, they don't have that much to say about it. How can we teach that? Since you see, you can offer a lot of different ways to answer that or to practice that. But our problem is, those are students, they are not native speakers. They don't have that many sentence pattern or that many vocabulary yet.
Yes, and that's a problem. I think my view on that is to start with frequency, where you'd say, what is the most frequent thing that people are doing? If what are you doing most frequently gets an answer, then it's a kind of start with that. Start with the most frequent vocabulary. Frequency is more important than the grammar point that the teacher wants to teach on that day. But also I think flexibility is very important. to say there isn't one kind of response to things. Now, very quickly here, we're to our time. I'm going to run through a couple of slides to get to where we might be able to get to with this. First, we could break it down into the units. Hello, hey, Kelly, it's Emily. What are you doing? I'm studying. What are you doing? And then from there, we could start looking at the sequence organization for those, how the turn taking is done. Then we could look at other ways to organize. So this is something the teacher would do before class. Are you hungry? Hungry? I'm starving. Do you like pizza? No, not really. Do you like Chinese food? Yes, I do. I love it. Let's have dumplings. Great idea. Okay, let's go. Okay, so the first step for the teacher in preparing this lesson would be to say, how is this sequence actually organized? So that's a sequence. That's a pre-sequence. Another pre-sequence. Another pre-sequence. And there's the actual invitation. So the teacher should be aware that this dialogue could be broken down into these micro dialogues. And this, then you could work with the students. Are you hungry? Hungry, I'm starving. Do you like pizza? No, not really. Do you like Chinese food? Yes, I do. I love it. Now, those are manageable small chunks that even beginning learners could deal with. Let's have dumplings. Great idea. Okay, let's go. Okay, and we'll get into that next time. We've actually gotten to the end of our time here. I'm sure people have to run.
Yes.
So I'll stop sharing. And I appreciate everybody coming. It's difficult here because I'm like trying to take 60 years of CA research and pack it down into this one kind of series of webinars, and that's ultimately difficult to do. I will be later on showing you some textbooks that if you're really interested in it, not textbooks, but books on CA, that if you're interested in exploring CA, these are the textbooks that I recommend. Okay.
Thank you so
anyway,
much.
Thank you very much, and we'll get back to more authentic dialogues. And next time, our big issue is going to be questions. Questions are not what we think they are. Questions are not the grammar that we teach in class. Okay, right? Enjoy the rest of your weekend. It's good seeing you all again. See you next time.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all very much. Please remember to fill in the questionnaire, and I'll see you next week for the questioning part. Thank you for your time and your participation.